Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So yeah, I know it's been a minute, but I've been on vacation, had a really great time, and now it's back to work. So in today's video, we're going to go back to basics a little bit. We're going to go back to how I learned how to paint models like this, and we're going to do this in a 4-step process that is simple to learn, and it's something that you can put together on your own, step by step if you want. But basically it's a core value of how I learned how to paint these things. So if you're having trouble painting, you feel like you're kind of stuck in a rut, this may be a great program for you to learn. And today's model is Psylocke, which is the Olivia Munn version. This was designed by Megha over at VXLabs, and I will have a link to his site in the description below. And hey, while you're at it down there, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Give us a like as well, and also leave some comments below. Let me know what you think of this video. All right, so let's get on to the video. So the first step is blocking. Blocking is basically putting down your colors where they need to go onto the model. But this is basically laying the essential colors as a base or a foundation onto the model before you move forward. All right, everybody, so I am getting ready to start painting the skin tones on Miss Olivia Munn here. We're going to start with the head. And the hair is separate on this, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to paint the hair pieces. There's actually 2 of these. So in this model, the head actually is separate from the hair, which I actually like. And then you got another hair piece that comes right in here. So we're going to go ahead and paint this, and pretty soon we'll join the head into it and when we start our detailing. So for the hair, I'm just using a basic flat black as a base. And this is the other little hair piece. So now we're going to use this Vallejo chrome for the katanas. Next thing, we're going to use this gunmetal right here on a couple of the base pieces. Little mechanical pieces here. And while we're at it, we're going to go ahead and paint the bottom part of this base that same gunmetal gray. So the last 2 pieces we're going to do with the airbrush are the ribbons, or the skirt, the robes, however you want to call it. And we're actually going to do that with a darker gore red. Just because this is a deep red and I really like this color. All right, so this is what it looks like with all of the blocking done All of the colors are put in place. As you can tell, it's very plain, very simple, one-dimensional is what I like to say, and we're about to change all that by going to step number 2. Step number 2 is washes and dry brushing. So with washes, you're essentially putting in depth and also contrast into the model. Washes will also help bring out definition within pieces that wouldn't normally stand out by just a flat paint job. So dry brushing will bring out highlights and also definition into a light source. So one of the first things I'm going to do next is I'm going to provide a wash for the skin tones. So basically I want this to have a little bit more depth than what it does. It's pretty pasty white right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a little bit of red paint. I'm going to thin it down to virtually nothing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put this on to the skin tone a little bit, let it bite in a little onto the actual tone itself, and then I'm actually just going to go back in and take this back off. And what that does is it allows the paint to actually bite into the skin tone and puts a little bit of a red pinkish tint like blood up underneath the skin, because we all have that, and again, it gives a little bit of depth. So you can actually go back in and wash this into like areas like the eyes, the lips, around the bridge of the nose, and you just want to thin it out really thin and allow this to bite in a little bit. So the next thing that I want to put a wash on is this base. It's very flat, very one-dimensional, there's nothing to it. So what I'm going to do is on the base down here, on the bottom part, I'm actually going to use a black wash right here from VXLabs. On the top up here, I'm actually going to do a combination of the black and this brown here. I'm going to mix it up a little bit and make it a little bit of brown and black, and let it bite into it really good. So the next thing I'm going to use a wash on are these two little robotic pieces here for the base. And essentially all I'm going to do is just add a black wash over these. And what we're going to do when we get done with this, then we're going to do some dry brushing on it and really make it pop. So next thing I'm going to do is what some people refer to as a pen wash. And essentially it's just taking a small fine tip brush like this and it's going in directly into some cracks and crevices, and then usually the ink kind of disperses itself in the line. Now, sometimes you kind of have to help it along its way. But essentially I'm going to go into these lines here and add a little bit of separation in for these lines. And again, you can do this with inks or whatever, but I like to do it with a wash, simply because like if you screw up, like I just did there, just wipe it away. So the only other thing that I need to put a wash on is the beam and the rebar here, and for that I'm going to use this skin wash right here, and it's a game ink. So what I want to do is kind of give it a rusty type color, and that's what this is going to allow me to do. So moving on to dry brushing, there's not much to dry brush on this model. So I'm going to start off with the base, and I'm going to use a light gray to start off with. So now at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and seal the base with a top coat, because we're going to do some detailing to it a little bit later on in the video. So the only other two parts on the base that I need to dry brush are these robotic parts, I guess you could say, for the base. And for that, I'm going to use this gun metal. It's a model air paint, but it'll do really good for the dry brushing part. So after I attach the robot parts to the base, I'm going to do a little bit more dry brushing on the edges with this sky gray. This is going to help bring out the edges and a lot more of the highlights and give it a little bit more definition to the base. Okay, and that brings us up to step number 3, shading. So normally I would use an airbrush to do some of the shading, but I think today I'm going to use pastels or chalk pastels. So the shading I'm going to do on this model is pretty basic. I am going to do a little bit of shading into the folds of the clothing and also a little bit on the base. It's not going to be overwhelming. So the basic color I'm going to use today is going to be a little black. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this X-Acto knife and I'm going to shave some of this off here and see how we use this. I did make a video on how to do shading with chalk pastels. Check out some of my videos and you'll see that on there. All right, so now a tip for you. I always seal my models before I do any type of shading with pastels, simply because if you screw up, you can take a wet paper towel and wipe it right off. If you don't seal it and you mess up and then you try to wipe it off, it will smudge the hell out of it. So be careful how you apply it, and just make sure that take precautions on your model and you don't mess it up. Okay, so I'm going to start putting a little bit on my brush here, and then I'm going to kind of go in some of the lines here. I want a little bit of depth into there, kind of make it a little smoky in some of the lines, and then you can kind of blow it off. Again, make sure that you are putting this on very liberal, very defined where you want it, because it will smudge. Try not to get it on your hands, because anything that you touch, you're going to get it on there. And so yeah, you just kind of go in certain areas where you want to shade. I'm going to kind of go into some of the folds of the suit and give it a little bit of color, a little bit of contrast right there. And then so I'm going to do this. Where you want to shade is pretty much up to you. This is your model. And this is how we do it. Now, once you get done with your shading, it is a good idea to seal your model again. That way you don't smudge any of the work that you just did. And as everybody knows, my favorite top coat is this Krylon Color Max Clear. I use a flat, but they do make a satin and a gloss as well. This stuff does really, really good for your top coat. So look that up. You can get it like at Lowe's, Home Depot, anywhere they pretty much sell spray paint. And then on the base right here, I'm going to kind of get into the cracks over here on the pavement part. Okay, and this brings us to our fourth and final step, and that's detailing. So this is my favorite step of all, and that's detailing. This is where you can put your own spin on your model, put your own flair on it. And there's so many things that you can do to make this model stand out. So let's take a look at what we're going to do on this one. So detailing is basically anything that you want to do as an extra added bonus, if you will. So like for this one here, like on the hands, the robotic parts, we're going to do a little chipping on here. We're going to do a little bit of rust on the bolts and things like that. And detailing is also when you start to get into your head sculpt, like the eyes and the lips and anything you want to do to highlight the hair. Just so many things, but this is the final piece of the project. And this is where you can really take and let your imagination run wild, but don't overdo it. Do it with the flow of the model itself. Sometimes people will get carried away on their effects that they use. But a lot of times that old saying, less is more, is so true in this. And this is what we're going to do on this one here. We're going to do things to spruce this one up, but we're going to pretty much do just a basic paint job on the details part, because this model is so good, the sculpt is so good, we really don't need anything else to make it stand out. But when you put your model together, it's totally up to you. Okay, so like for this part, I'm actually going to use a chrome silver from Tamiya. And actually I'm going to do a little bit of edging on some on the base here. And we're going to do like a little bit of weathering effect. I call it chipping. Some people call it something different. And then we'll also do some here on the robotic parts. So kind of make them look like they're kind of battle damaged a little bit. You've seen the videos. I mean, you see how to add your little flair to it and everything. You can do anything from dry brushing, edging. You can do anything like just adding just a few scrapes on it just to make it stand out a little bit extra. But again, this is more personalization when it comes to detailing. That's all it's about. So we're going to work on this a little bit and show you some of the end results. But essentially what I am doing is just kind of weathering it up a little bit, making some scars and scratches and making it look like it's seen better days. So one other thing that pastels are really good for, especially on female sculpts, and that's makeup. So like as far as putting on eyeshadow, something like that, really good for that, because it gives a real subtle blend up there in the eyes. It's just like putting on makeup, like a woman would, I guess. But if you really want to learn how to do female sculpts, guys, out there, check with your wife or your girlfriend. Because they know how to put on makeup. They could probably help you out and give you a few pointers. So now that we're pretty much done with all the details on the face, one last thing that we're going to do that I noticed in the film is she has a little bit of purple highlights in her hair, and I'm going to use this royal purple right here to accomplish that. All right, so once we have the swords in place and the face all finished, it's time to go ahead and add the gloss onto the eyes and onto the lips, and we are going to call this statue done. Well, there you have it, everybody. I hope you got something out of this video. Keep in mind that if you are a beginner, this is a 4-step process just for you. This is basically how I learned all those years ago. Now, you can go in any order, but this is pretty much how I learned it, and probably the easiest way to really get a good grasp on your model. Don't forget, I do have a Patreon. The link is in the description below. We would love to have you over on our private Discord where you can talk all things printing and painting. And I do have a new member this week. His name is Tony Private. It's kind of spelled like private too. So thanks a lot, Tony, for joining. We're glad to have you here. All right, so don't forget, you know the drill. Like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. This helps boost the channel's recognition in the ever-loving algorithm, or however that works. And until the next video, everybody, don't forget, get out there, create something, print, prep, paint, repeat, and we'll see you.